#PurpleLightUp. Sightsavers leader-to-leader conversations.
So as a leader, what value do you see staff with disabilities adding to our work?
I mean, I think there are probably two answers to this, Kate, if I'm honest. The first one, I think, is that the value that staff with disabilities bring is exactly the same as the value that every other staff member brings, which is the skills, experiences, talents, and so on that all staff bring to the organisation. And I think it's important that we recognise that we don't have staff with disabilities because they're staff with disabilities. We have staff and we try and be in as inclusive a workspace and an employer as we can be. Having said that, I think there's a second part to that answer, which is because of the mission of Sightsavers, because we have this clear focus on working on disability and development, inclusive development. For me, it's important that we have a number of staff with different disabilities working through the organisation because of their experience, their lived experience of being people with disabilities. So, Kate, what do you think we can do better to support people with disabilities who work at Sightsavers, or what plans have we got to improve things in future based on the work that you do and the conversations you have?
I chatted to members of the employee network, the Disabled Employee Network, and took some of their ideas. So my responses represent all of our inputs, really. And the things that came out of this question, particularly from around the team, were to recognise the diversity of impairments and disabilities, especially those that are hidden, and the value of a wide range of experience that we have within the organisation, to ensure that we focus on the support, development and retention of disabled employees, not just around recruiting new ones, and that managers particularly should have a flexible and supportive approach and regular dialogue with staff who are disabled to establish their needs and how best to address these within the organisation. What opportunities are there at Sightsavers for staff to make change?
If you look at the social inclusion strategy that we have now, the breadth of work that we're doing now, I think there's a phenomenal change within the organisation in terms of what we do, but as importantly in terms of who we are. And I think that's no more the case than it has been with the social inclusion working group, which then became the disability inclusion working group. And I think the work that group's done, led by you, Kate, but I know with others as well, has definitely changed the organisation for the better. If I look at the numbers of people that we've recruited who declare themselves as having a disability and feel confident about doing that and feel capable of doing that, the range of disabilities that are both in our staff base, but also the organisations and individuals that we work with and for, I think is phenomenal. And that hasn't happened because one or two people have said it should. It's happened because of the amount of work that's gone into it across the organisation and across the staff base. And that includes people on the DIWG who represent every team and every department across the organisation. And that's made a phenomenal difference. There are lots of opportunities for staff to make change. I think it takes a few people to have the courage to speak up and the trust maybe in the leadership to speak up and say, I'd quite like this to be a bit different. But I've certainly not seen, in my time at Sightsavers, I've not seen that kind of courage or that speaking up. I've not seen it be rejected. I've not seen it be received negatively in any way, if anything, quite the reverse. And again, I think the DIWG is a really good example of that. So how do you think leaders without a lived experience of disability can learn from people with disabilities within Sightsavers?
So again, I think there are several things here that we can do. We can invite staff with disabilities, and particularly those who are happy to declare their disability, members of our den, to share their experiences and their thoughts with leaders. And we already have a bit of this two-way conversation, which is great because I come to, as you know, to some of the senior management meetings. I've done presentations to the trustee board to make them aware of what we're doing internally, and I think that's all brilliant, really. I've got another management update coming up, not for just the regional managers, but the whole management team in March next year. Ken's invited us along, and I think that's brilliant because it enables that two-way conversation, really. Why is it important for staff with disabilities to be seen in leadership roles at Sightsavers?
I think it's, broadly speaking, it fits into the reason why the SIWG started, really, when you and I were first talking about it, is all about walking the talk. It is no good going to other organisations, going to governments, going to companies and saying, you guys need to be more inclusive if you're not doing that yourself. I think that's the worst kind of patronising advocacy, and we just don't want to do that. I think it's much more compelling if you can talk about this is the journey that we're on. And I think we have to be clear that it is a journey and we're not at the end of it. It's important because it's our mission. And if we're not more inclusive ourselves, we can't be asking other people to be more inclusive.
Well, thank you very much, Dom. It's been great to talk to you today. Thank you for all of your encouragement, and hopefully we'll carry on both within the Disabled Employee Network and within the Disability Inclusion Working Group.
Absolutely, Kate, thank you. And for all of you, keep shouting or talking politely, whichever one works for you, because I'll be listening. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you, Dom.
To learn more about Sightsavers Disabled Employee Network or the Disability Inclusion Working Group, please email Kate Bennell at sightsavers.org.